Opening presentation and capstone micro lesson. 1. Executive summary course description. The overview of the problem. High school students often lack the necessary base comprehension skills of language, in spite of rigorous instruction and strategies employed by the school system throughout the years. Once they reach 9th grade, they are no longer promoted through the system based on attendance, age, etc., and other extraneous values outside the educational learning objects. The state and the district require all students to be assessed for their reading levels. The lowest scores of Level 1 and Level 2 on the Florida State Assessment are required to take remedial reading courses until they are able to reach on-grade level reading skills, i.e. Level 3. This is to help ensure students' future academic achievement and coursework progression towards completing a high school diploma. The goal is to increase high school comprehension skills of Level 1 and 2 readers through the study of historical English texts in order to develop vocabulary and strategies for future required comprehensional skills to ultimately be applied in all 4 subject areas and ensure academic success. Pre- and post-test summative assessments will be given to participating students in a 3-week course to determine levels of effective comprehensional ability when they are exposed to language structures similar but not unique to the English language. Formative assessments observing student progress and functioning levels will be administered throughout the course weekly. Upon analysis of grade level texts of historical English structures, Level 1 and Level 2 high school students will be able to demonstrate a 10% increased knowledge of key vocabulary usage as determined by pre- and post-test score comparison within a 3-week blended coursework study. To increase student comprehension and fluency of the English language by interpreting and applying past language constructs to present-day communication, ultimately apply these learning strategies to other academic areas which will result in progressive academic achievement. Pre- and post-tests would be administered regarding the material, the vocabulary to be covered within the 3-week data collection period. I would fundamentally use an online tutorial LMS such as eCampus or Google Sites to provide the lessons and resources for a historic language exposure and data keeping of student performance. Instructional intervention of assessments would support contemporary student language construction by qualitative review of student products. The final quantitative correct usage of terminology within the context of present-day communication would be measured by word-for-word, appropriate meaning, and context spelling, etc. 2.3. Summary of learning theories you're applying to your framework with examples of course artifacts. The overall learning theories cannot be independently considered within my capstone course project because each activity requires demonstration of varying levels of mental functioning and physical expression. Although it can be argued that each individual learning theory possesses the ability to explain the learning process in its entirety, I think that the historical timeline and growth of complexities within the developing learning theories indicate that an individual learning theory cannot completely summarize the learning process from beginning to end with various individuals and cultures. Therefore, to more wholly assess and attend to a learner's capability and needs, one must supply academic assets in a variety of formats to produce a more thoroughly exploited mental learning process. This is in accordance with Bloom's taxonomy, requiring levels of complexity of output learning evidence. For example, the learner must explain versus the learner must apply. Therefore, to address the overall course objective to increase Level 1, Level 2 high school comprehensional skills through the study of historical English texts in order to develop vocabulary and strategies for future required comprehension skills, I created academic assets to address the increasing level of complexity of mental acuity in the learning process. The online game practices began to exemplify one of the earliest learning theories, Pavlov's behaviorism. In behaviorism, we know that Pavlov took dog's unconditioned response of salivating to food and paired it with a conditioned stimulus, the bell. This refers to the law of temporal contugy. Learning will occur if the time between the conditioned stimulus, the bell, and the unconditioned stimulus, the food, is within close proximity of occurring. This is the same premise with the online game practices. The immediate feedback of correct or incorrect indicates to the student how familiar he or she is with the independent practice of new material. He or she will learn with repeated exposure to the same vocabulary terms and assuredly increase acknowledgement of the correct response. Bloom's taxonomy knowledge. The opportunity to have repeated practice sessions through the 3 weeks further ensures student recognition of appropriate informational responses. The student will continue to attempt academic gain by independently competing with their personal score. Although strict behaviorism does not take into account intrinsic motivation, the student's motivation is actually cultivated due to the increase in neurotransmitted dopamine released when the correct answer is given. This internal process is physically automated. Thereby, I would argue that it's not emotionally or cognitively motivated, and therefore only a base learned response to a reward stimulus, thus indicating the true nature of behaviorism. I would, however, argue that because there is an incorrect response option, the online games are indicative of operant conditioning as opposed to simple classical conditioning. Classical conditioning is a response to a stimulus, repelling from a touch, turning towards a sudden sound. Choosing a right or wrong response and obtaining immediate feedback was theorized by Thorndike as a response-consequence reaction. The fact that this activity is repeated through the course over the 3 weeks, I anticipate that the students will become more familiar with the technical delivery format and therefore increased ability to move more quickly, gaining correct response rates would occur. However, more in-depth level cognitive association and production would be lacking. So the initial review of definitions and their synonyms and reseeing their appearance in various formats of reading text and video presentations builds student comprehension using the cognitivism theory. The primary premise of cognitivism theory seeks to explain the process of knowledge acquisition and the subsequent effects on mental learning structures within the mind. Cognitive theory tends to focus on conceptualizing the student's learning process, how information is received, how information is processed, and how it's organized into existing schema, how information is retrieved upon recall. High school students already have been exposed to a wealth of experiences and stimuli which have left a cognitive mark on their neurological brain patterns. They will continue to build neurological structures as their sensory perceptions are exposed to new stimuli, and reorganize them in conjunction with previous cortical structures. When exposing students to the definitions and synonym assignments, students begin acquiring new information to add to pre-existing mental structures. As they see the terms reappear in a variety of circumstances, they begin building upon the acquired knowledge and create meaningful conceptions of what each term abstractly intends to convey. This repetition of intentionally introducing the core vocabulary assets in multiple depictions significantly coordinate visual perceptual data into an explicit cognitive concept. The more visual stimulus a student receives, the more meaning and fluency he can gain over its conception. The terms themselves are broken down into units of 15. While this may initially sound like a large amount, I believe the continued repetition throughout the week will support the 10% growth anticipated. This amounts to just 3 words per day, focusing on one activity per day with ample review time in various formats daily. Repetition of the same terminology all week is important because I wanted to prevent cognitive overload. This being the teacher giving too much information or too many tasks to the learner simultaneously, resulting in the learner being unable to process the information. By reviewing the same terms daily, intrinsic cognitive load is taken into consideration, the variety of cognitive activities, definitions, synonyms, reading, and video utilize the same information repeated continually to the learner, ensuring appropriate extraneous cognitive load. Finally, the continued repetition of seeing the terms throughout the 3 weeks would ensure the working memory information transitions to a student's permanent knowledge storage or schema. One anticipated shortcoming of the course, which may appear in the end analysis of the course assessment, post-test, and evaluation, is that the cognitive absorption and retention rates of the later week, particularly the 3rd week, may indicate more exposure and practice will be needed if the course is continued in the future. Constructivism is the next learning theory I would address as the lesson activity demands rise to higher levels in Bloom's taxonomy. Constructivism is defined as a philosophy where students construct their own meaning by building on their previous knowledge and experience. New ideas and experiences are matched against the existing knowledge, and the learner constructs new or adapted rules to make sense of the world. Students are a diverse set of learners with expressively different backgrounds, experiences, ability levels, personalities, etc. Students may see the same set of stimuli but project mental variances upon the same image. For instance, when using language, although the same basic meaning may apply to the term, the context, the intonation, the expressiveness of the term may be perceived much differently by learners involved due to their background experiences and ability to effectively apply their cognition. Therefore, it is essential that we ask students to construct products using their acquired information to ensure accuracy of conceptualization of whatever data they are exposed. Building the PowerPoint and audio file allow the instructor to view his or her students' personal discrepancies with the manner of application of language terms studied. The PowerPoint conveys the correct vocabulary usage within a student-constructed environment, which enlightens his or her perception of the significance of the terms. The word choice utilized indicate his or her personal comfort and familiarity of the term used. Non-usage of specific terms may indicate lack of understanding on the student's behalf and require reteaching or scaffolded instruction of that vocabulary. The audio file assignment will convey the student's overall fluency and appropriate application of terminology within the stated context. It should further student comprehension of vocabulary and appropriate opportunities for its use. Lack of ability to fluently deliver an audible recording would indicate absence of a speech deficit, unfamiliarity of the terms. Students need opportunities to apply their acquired knowledge in order to effectively take advantage of their increased skill base. If students are unable to construct effective work products from their acquired language terms, they will then need other strategies, extended time, and individualized instruction to complete the expected goals and objectives. Finally, although I'm tempted to include the Google Doc assignment as connectitism due to having a connected community around shared information, I feel as though the limited scope of a single classroom is not global enough to correctly fit into the connectitism learning theory. I would have to classify this assignment as social constructivism. Social constructivism is a variety of cognitive constructivism that emphasizes the collaborative nature of much learning. Within the context of the Google Docs assignments, students are collaborating amongst each other in small groups to produce a collective product illustrating their understanding of the assigned vocabulary. Their final product is a culmination of all participants acquiring understanding of the course content. This concludes my capstone micro lesson on Level 1 and Level 2 high school readers increasing their proficiency 10% by studying historical English vocabulary.